Get out. Don't touch anything. I don't want kids in flip-flops and shorts walking around here. This place isn't for you. The store for poor people is on the other side of town. Go look at used cars over there and stop dreaming about something you'll never afford. That's what the salesman said as he grabbed the boys by the arm, boys who were staring in awe at a luxury car display. But the next day, a Rolls-Royce pulled up right in front of the dealership. The afternoon sun cast a golden glow over the sidewalks of Austin, Texas, when two teenagers, Liam and Tyler, cruised leisurely down a busy avenue on their bikes. They wore plain t-shirts and faded shorts, and their bikes were nothing special. Just two regular kids enjoying the last light of the day, unhurried and carefree. They laughed with each other, as if living the best part of being young, the freedom of riding aimlessly, feeling the wind on their faces, lost in made-up stories and spontaneous dreams. But there was something different about them, something you couldn't quite name yet. When they turned the corner onto Sunset Boulevard, their brakes squeaked almost in unison. They stopped in front of a massive luxury car dealership, its glass windows looking more like portals to another world. Without saying a word, they left their bikes by the curb and walked up to the facade. Inside, what met their eyes looked more like an art gallery than a showroom. A Lamborghini Huracan, a Ferrari Roma, a McLaren 720S, and at the back, like a throne on wheels, a black Rolls-Royce with chrome detailing. The boys froze. The silence was total. Liam stepped closer, pressing his face against the glass. "Look at this tie. This is a masterpiece." Tyler answered with a low whistle, like someone paying silent respect to something sacred. His eyes were filled with pure excitement, but also sharp focus. They weren't just gawking, they were analyzing. They examined every curve of the bodywork, commented on the rims, the engine, the leather seats. There was no over-the-top awe, just technical fascination, like something they had studied for years. Still, from the outside, they looked like just two ordinary kids. Inside the dealership, a group of salesmen watched them with a mix of boredom and smug amusement. Every weekend, same story. One of them muttered, "These kids show up, drool over the cars, and disappear. They'll never buy a thing." The remark earned a round of dry laughs. None of them had a clue that they were witnessing something far greater than appearances let on. Liam and Tyler didn't hear a word of it. They were immersed in that world of wheels, design, and horsepower. Every detail they discussed seemed to come from hands-on experience, not just magazines. After a few minutes, Tyler stepped back from the glass and crossed his arms. "You think it's the same model from the Monterey event?" Liam smiled. "I think so. But this one's got a different finish. Titanium exhaust detail." And they leaned in again. It felt like a quiet ritual between them. Their harmony, their knowledge, their calm. It all contradicted the idea that they were just window shopping. But to the dealership staff, who only saw what was on the surface, it was just another couple of dreamers staring at cars they'd never own. They had no idea they were underestimating exactly the kind of people they should never look down on. On the other side of the glass, inside the sleek, air-conditioned dealership, the atmosphere couldn't have been more different. The chilled air, leather furniture, and gourmet coffee served on silver trays gave the space a refined, exclusive feel. There, among murmurs about financing rates and hefty commissions, a group of salesmen watched the two teens with a mix of impatience and scorn. "Just two more dreamers with their noses pressed against the glass," muttered Rick, one of the senior members of the team, folding his arms with disdain. "Give it 5 minutes and they'll be taking selfies with the caption, 'One day I'll get mine.'" The laughter that followed was quiet, but it dripped with venom. Martin, another seasoned salesman, chimed in with a smirk. "They've got a better chance of washing those cars than driving one." Andrew, the newest addition to the team, said nothing. He had already noticed that attitude over the past few days, a certain contempt masked as experience. But this time, something about it unsettled him even more. These boys weren't laughing or being loud. They weren't smudging the glass or causing a scene like some kids did. They were just admiring. with respect, with focus, with something different in their eyes. Rick stood up with an air of superiority and walked to the entrance. He yanked the door open with enough force to make the sharp squeak echo through the lobby. Liam and Tyler turned, startled. "All right, that's enough," Rick said harshly. "Move along, boys. This isn't a fast food window. These cars aren't for you." Tyler glanced at his brother, confused. Liam didn't say a word. There was something about the way he stood that irritated Rick. There was no fear in his eyes, only calm and dignity. Before they could respond, Rick stepped forward and pointed his finger. "Get out. Don't touch anything. I don't want kids in flip-flops and shorts walking around here. This is a real showroom, not some school field trip." His words landed like stones thrown with force. But what stung the most was the certainty behind them. In that moment, time seemed to freeze. What Rick thought was a warning felt more like a slap in the face to Liam and Tyler, an attempt to belittle them, to make them small. And yet, neither of them reacted with anger. Inside the dealership, Andrew couldn't keep quiet any longer. He stood and walked toward the door. His voice was firm, but respectful. "Rick, with all due respect, that's no way to treat anyone. They haven't done anything wrong." Rick turned, surprised by the rookie's interference. "They're just a couple of punks wasting time." "What, you going to defend them now?" Andrew looked him straight in the eyes. "And if they were your kids? Would you want someone to speak to them like that?" The silence that followed was louder than any response. Rick broke eye contact, scoffed, and walked back inside. But Liam and Tyler didn't move. They stood there, still trying to make sense of what had just happened. The quiet that lingered after Andrew's intervention hung heavy in the air. Liam and Tyler looked at each other, unsure whether to say thank you or just walk away in silence. There was tension in the air, but Andrew, with a quiet smile and a calm demeanor, broke the uncomfortable moment. He stepped forward, looked at the two boys, and said with a natural ease that contrasted sharply with the earlier coldness, "Sorry about that. Would you like to come in and take a look at the cars?" Liam blinked, surprised. Tyler hesitated for a second, then gave a small nod. The invitation felt almost surreal after the humiliation from just minutes earlier. Andrew opened the door gently and, without any showiness, just respect, gestured toward the showroom. "Come on in. It's cooler in here," he joked lightly. The warm tone was like a breath of humanity in a space that, until then, had only offered indifference. With cautious steps, the boys crossed the threshold, for the first time standing inside that paradise on wheels. If you're enjoying this story, hit that subscribe button and join our community of story lovers. Now let's get back to see what happens next. The floor gleamed under the showroom lights, and the scent of new leather mingled with high-tech sophistication. Tyler approached a Ferrari and ran his fingers along the bodywork with reverence. Liam, on the other hand, walked straight toward the lime green Lamborghini he had seen through the glass. He circled the car as if he were studying it, like he already knew it from somewhere. Andrew watched in silence, intrigued by the way Liam examined every detail. It wasn't the gaze of some curious kid. It was the look of someone who knew, someone who understood. "This model has a V10 engine, all-wheel drive, and 640 horsepower, Liam said, without taking his eyes off the car. Andrew smiled, surprised. "You know your stuff." "I've been studying cars since I was 8, Liam replied simply. Tyler chimed in, "Both of us. We like cars more than video games." Andrew stepped in a little closer, now genuinely interested. These boys weren't there to fantasize about some unreachable dream. They were there out of real passion. A love for design, engineering, and the whole driving experience. And even without knowing where they came from, Andrew saw something the others hadn't. They didn't seem out of place here. They were simply in disguise. And by instinct, by empathy, or maybe by something he couldn't even explain, he decided to go a step further. "Want to see the inside? I can open it up for you." Their eyes lit up, and the sting from the beginning of their visit started to fade. Andrew knelt beside the Lamborghini, inserted the keycard, and unlocked the door with a quiet click. The mechanical sound felt like magic to Liam and Tyler, whose hearts raced as they watched. "Go ahead, hop in. Just be careful with the details. It's a sensitive machine," he said, not as a warning, but with the gentleness of someone handing over something precious. Liam slid into the driver's seat with reverence, running his hand along the Alcantara-wrapped steering wheel. Tyler sat beside him, mesmerized by the digital dashboard glowing in shades of blue. For a few minutes, they explored the interior with their eyes. There was no chatter, no bursts of laughter, just silence and awe. This wasn't just a moment of dreaming. It was a moment of touching, seeing, and feeling, as if the future had arrived early, just for them. Andrew stood nearby, a soft smile on his face. It was clear that the joy of giving them that experience was worth more than any commission. He wasn't just a salesman in that moment. He was someone who understood the power of small gestures. Meanwhile, in the back of the dealership, the snide remarks were starting up again. Rick, still fuming over Andrew's interference, whispered to another colleague, "Look at this," giving attention to a couple of street kids. "What's he gonna do when one of them scratches the car? Pay for it out of his own pocket." Martin laughed sarcastically. "Let the rookie play babysitter. He'll learn eventually." But Andrew wasn't listening. Or rather, he was, but he chose to ignore it. There was something far more important unfolding in front of him. Something that couldn't be seen by eyes that only measured people in dollar signs and appearances. "This model does 0 to 60 in 2.9 seconds, Liam said, still fixated on the dashboard. Andrew, clearly impressed, responded, "Exactly. It's a machine that demands respect and guts." "And vision," Tyler added. At that moment, Andrew felt something stir inside him. It was as if he were looking at two future engineers or entrepreneurs or race car drivers, maybe all of the above. But more than anything, they were two young men with a rare kind of spark in their eyes. A spark he didn't often see, not even in the grown-ups who came in flashing cash. Suddenly, Andrew glanced around, then, on a spontaneous impulse, opened the glove compartment. He pulled out the spare key and held it for a few seconds, thinking. Then he looked at the boys. "Want to take a ride around the block?" Liam and Tyler stared at him, not sure they'd heard right. It was too surreal. But when they saw the sincerity in his face, they didn't say a word. They just nodded, trying to contain the wave of emotion rising faster than the revs on that engine. They didn't know it yet, but that short drive would mark a clear before and after in their lives, and in Andrew's too. With the key in hand, Andrew walked around to the driver's side, opened the door, and got in naturally. Tyler slid into the back seat, still barely believing this was really happening. Liam remained in the front passenger seat, his posture suddenly rigid, eyes locked on the dashboard. The engine purred softly, almost as if it knew the moment was special. Andrew started the car with a gentle touch, and the growl of the Lamborghini filled the showroom, drawing the stunned attention of the other salesmen. The car rolled smoothly out of the dealership, followed by stares of disbelief and judgment. The streets of Austin felt wider that afternoon. The sun glinted off the car's lime-green body as Andrew drove cautiously, never exceeding the speed limit, but accelerating just enough for the boys to feel the engine's raw power. Tyler gazed out the window like every corner was a memory being etched in real time. Liam, still silent, took in everything: the smell of the leather, the feel of the sports seat beneath him, the subtle vibrations of the floor as each gear shifted. "This is unreal," he whispered, not looking at anyone. "It's just the beginning," Andrew replied with a quiet smile. During the drive, there was no small talk. It wasn't a sales pitch, and it wasn't your average test drive. It was a moment of connection, raw humanity, where three people from different worlds shared something unique. Andrew didn't ask where they were from or where they lived. He knew, instinctively, That discretion was part of the mystery surrounding those boys. And he respected that. He didn't pry. He simply drove with a light touch, as if he were offering more than just an experience. He was offering respect. As they rounded the block and returned to the dealership, Andrew felt something shift inside him. That simple act of kindness, small as it might have seemed, had awakened something. It wasn't just about doing the right thing. It was like he'd been reminded of who he was, why he got into this business in the first place. People, not just products, he thought. When he parked the Lamborghini back in the showroom, the boys stepped out slowly. Like they were waking from a dream, they weren't ready to leave. They didn't say anything right away. Their silence said it all. Before they left, Andrew pulled a business card from his pocket and handed it to Liam. "Keep this. I have a feeling one day you'll come back here as customers. And when that day comes, I want to be the one who hands you the keys." Liam took the card with both hands, gripping it like something sacred. Tyler smiled for the first time since the ride. "Thank you, really." Andrew just nodded. To him, it was the least he could do. But to those boys, it meant everything. With their hearts still racing, Liam and Tyler pushed their bikes back to the curb. But instead of the loud excitement you might expect after riding in a Lamborghini, there was a quiet between them. A deep, meaningful quiet. They walked several steps without speaking. Liam kept his eyes locked on the business card Andrew had given him, as if that little rectangle of paper held the weight of a key, one that hadn't turned yet, but someday would unlock a door. "I don't even know what to say," Tyler murmured, still feeling the shape of the sports seat against his back. "Me neither," Liam replied, finally slipping the card into the pocket of his shorts. "But one thing's for sure, that guy's different." They got back on their bikes, but something was different now. They pedaled slower. It wasn't fatigue. It was like they were trying to stretch the moment, savor every second before it faded into memory. The humiliation they'd felt earlier had transformed into something else. Inspiration. They didn't need motivational speeches. Andrew's gesture had said everything. They had been seen, believed in, without needing to explain who they were. Inside the dealership, however, the atmosphere was completely different. Andrew had just returned to his desk when Rick and Martin closed in around him, their sarcasm hidden behind fake smiles. "Nice show, rookie," Rick said, arms crossed. "How much commission do you get for entertaining the neighborhood mascots?" Martin laughed, clapping Andrew on the shoulder. "You've got a good heart, man. But this is sales, not a shelter for charity cases." Andrew took a deep breath, resisting the urge to snap back. It wasn't worth trying to explain to them the value of a respectful look, of a chance given, of a door opened with no promise of return. They wouldn't get it. Not yet, anyway. As the clock slowly ticked toward closing time, the comments about Andrew still echoed through the dealership's halls. The sight of him taking two flip-flop-wearing teens for a spin in a Lamborghini had spread like a joke among the staff. Rick, as usual, led the mockery. "Bet they went straight home to post the video on TikTok." Martin added with a mocking grin, "Luxury car ride. You can dream too." Their words were like dull blades, lacking cleverness, only managing to wound with arrogance. Andrew, sitting at his desk, was quietly reviewing client files, unfazed by the laughter. Inside, he carried something the others clearly lacked: fulfillment. Not because of a sale, there hadn't been one, but because of that rare feeling that comes from doing the right thing, even when no one's watching. Especially when no one's watching. He knew that the most valuable gestures are rarely recognized right away, and that didn't matter. One day, those boys are coming back, and I want to be here when they do. He thought, not with pride, but with quiet faith. Outside, night fell over Austin beneath a clear sky scattered with shy stars. At the Price family mansion, Liam and Tyler arrived in silence. The gate opened automatically, revealing a wide driveway lined with palm trees and a glowing central water feature. No security guard questioned them. No staff member gave a second glance to their simple clothes. They were sons of that home, and they liked exploring the world beyond its walls without the weight of their last name. At dinner, their father, Jonathan Price, noticed the change in their eyes. He didn't ask. He understood that some silences speak louder than any detailed story. But he stayed alert. Jonathan was a man of few impulses, but keen observation. Later that night, back in their room, Liam pulled the card from his pocket and placed it gently on his desk. Tyler, brushing his teeth, glanced at him through the mirror and asked, "You gonna tell him tomorrow?" Liam nodded, his eyes still fixed on the card. "It's the least we can do. That guy deserves it." And with that sentence, a decision was made. Not out of revenge, not out of justice, but out of recognition. Andrew had no idea, but his kindness had just changed the course of his own story. On the other side of the city, in his small studio apartment, Andrew lay down exhausted, unaware that while others laughed, fate was watching him and quietly smiling. The next morning, the routine at the dealership carried on as usual. Coffee being served in neatly arranged cups, salesmen organizing presentation folders, and Rick complaining about the heat before it was even 9 o'clock. Andrew, as always, arrived on time, shirt crisp, expression calm. Despite the jokes from the night before, he looked like a man who had slept in peace. The store was still quiet when the sound of an engine echoed from outside. But it wasn't just any engine. It was the kind of sound that commanded respect, deep, smooth, and unmistakably refined. A black Rolls-Royce with chrome accents pulled up directly in front of the dealership's main entrance. The doors opened automatically, and every head turned toward the car. The Spirit of Ecstasy hood ornament shimmered under the morning sun, announcing that this was no ordinary visit. A man stepped out, wearing a perfectly tailored dark suit, his stride confident and composed. He carried an imposing presence, yet there was an elegant calm in his eyes. Jonathan Price walked with the certainty of someone who knew exactly why he was there, and exactly who he was looking for. The salesmen exchanged puzzled glances. Some instinctively straightened their posture. Rick leaned toward Martin and whispered, "Now that's a real client. If we close one like him today, the month's made." Andrew, however, didn't move. He didn't yet know who the man was, but something in his gut told him this wasn't an ordinary buyer. Jonathan entered with the quiet assurance of a man backed by decades of successful deals. He scanned the room, taking in faces discreetly until he found the one he recognized, not by appearance, but by the description he'd heard the night before. "I'm looking for Andrew," he said clearly. The room froze for a second. Rick opened his mouth to say something, but Andrew had already risen to his feet calmly. "That's me. How can I help you?" Jonathan extended his hand and shook Andrew's firmly. "My name is Jonathan Price. Yesterday, my sons were here." The sentence dropped like a silent bomb. Tyler and Liam? Those boys? The world seemed to tilt slightly, just enough for those truly paying attention to feel it. Rick and Martin, listening from the corner, exchanged glances now drained of color. Andrew furrowed his brow slightly, trying not to show his surprise. Jonathan continued, "They told me everything, and I came here for 2 reasons. One is to thank you. The other, well, you'll find out soon enough." And with that, Jonathan slowly looked around, taking in the space as if measuring it with more than just his eyes. The same people who had laughed yesterday were now shrinking back. The one who had acted with empathy was, unknowingly, about to live the biggest moment of his life. The silence was almost physical as Jonathan walked a few steps forward, examining the showroom cars with a quiet appreciation, as if choosing not only with his eyes, but also with his soul. Andrew, still not fully grasping the magnitude of what was unfolding, remained composed, though his heart was beating faster. The name Price wasn't unfamiliar to him, but he didn't dare connect the dots just yet. He simply listened, attentive, respectful. Jonathan turned and said, "My sons, Liam and Tyler are twins. They have different personalities, but they share one deep passion: cars. Yesterday, they chose to go out on their own, no driver, no labels, nothing that would give them away, just to observe, to feel, to experience the city. And they ended up here. Rick's eyes widened instantly. His mouth went dry, and a cold sweat trickled down the back of his neck. Martin turned his head discreetly, as if looking for an escape route that didn't exist. No one dared to interrupt. Jonathan continued, in the same calm, respectful tone, but with firm resolve. They told me what they experienced here. They told me how they were received, and how they were treated by you, Andrew. He paused, looked the salesman directly in the eye, and said, "You were kind, respectful, and humane, and you didn't know who they were. That makes it all the more valuable." Andrew swallowed hard, not from fear, but from emotion. He could feel that this moment was bigger than himself. "I just treated them the way I'd want someone to treat my own kids, if I had any," he replied sincerely. Jonathan gave a slight smile, the kind reserved for rare truths. "And that's exactly why I'm here, to thank you personally, and to do something more." Slowly, he turned toward the other salesman. Rick lowered his gaze. Martin pretended to be flipping through a catalog. Jonathan took a deep breath and said, without raising his voice, "Gentlemen, you deal in dreams, but what you're actually selling is respect. When you dismiss someone based on their clothing or appearance, you're giving up something far greater than a sale. You're giving up your character." The weight of those words hit like a silent thunderclap. No one spoke. There was no defense, only silence and shame. Jonathan turned back to Andrew and concluded, "My sons told me they fell in love with one car in particular, a lime green Lamborghini. They described it in detail, told me you even took them for a ride in it." Andrew nodded, still speechless. Jonathan offered a faint smile. "I'd like to buy it. It's their 16th birthday gift." And in that moment, everything changed. Jonathan walked with calm certainty to where the lime green Lamborghini sat, imposing, elegant, and silent. He stopped in front of it like someone reuniting with a member of the family. He ran his hand over the bodywork with ease and said, without hesitation, "This is the one." Andrew approached quietly, his heart tight in his chest, caught between awe and responsibility. With a steady voice, he replied, "I'll check its availability with our finance department and get the paperwork started." Jonathan nodded, and for the first time, his smile carried a touch of generosity. "Please do. I'd like everything ready by late morning." As Andrew stepped away to prepare the paperwork, his co-workers watched him in silence. Rick's face had gone pale, his eyes downcast, his hands fidgeting restlessly. Martin retreated to the back of the dealership, pretending to answer a phone call. Neither of them dared say a word. That sale, the biggest of the month, maybe the quarter, was happening without them even being able to offer a glass of water. There was no commission, no smooth-talking sales pitch, just a grateful client and a gesture being honored with dignity. In the finance office, Andrew explained the situation calmly. The staff, though accustomed to high-ticket transactions, struggled to mask their surprise when they heard who the buyer was. The sale was approved without hesitation. Everything flowed smoothly, as if fate itself wanted the process to be seamless. As he printed the documents, Andrew mentally reviewed every clause, every line, not out of doubt but out of care. He knew the sale wasn't just a number. It was a symbol of integrity. Meanwhile, Jonathan remained in the showroom, calmly observing other vehicles, taking a few discreet calls. Deep down, he didn't need the car. The gift, yes, had meaning, but the true reason for his visit was something else: to recognize a dignified act, to reward what usually goes unnoticed. When Andrew returned with the documents and pen in hand, Jonathan signed them without even reading twice. Then he looked him in the eye and said, "The world needs more people like you. People who treat everyone equally, even when no one's watching." Andrew stood in silence for a few seconds, unsure what to say. Then, with a sincere handshake, he replied, "Thank you for trusting me. I just did what I thought was right." Jonathan nodded. "And that's exactly why you did far more than most." With the sale finalized and the process underway, Jonathan added, casually, "Now, I'd like to speak with the store manager." A wave of tension spread through the room. The manager, Mr. Wallace, a seasoned man with careful speech, approached immediately. He wore a practiced smile and held the upright posture of someone used to dealing with high-end clients. But something in his face betrayed his nerves. This wasn't an ordinary visit, and he knew it. "I'm Mr. Wallace, Sir Price. How can I assist you?" Jonathan made a slight gesture, inviting him to a private office, unhurried, but with unmistakable purpose. Once the door closed behind them, Jonathan folded his hands over the table, maintained a calm gaze, and began without ceremony. "Yesterday, my sons came here, dressed simply as they like to do from time to time. They're young, but they have a very clear sense of people, and an even sharper memory for how they're treated." The manager started to speak, perhaps to downplay the situation, but Jonathan raised his hand gently. "No need to explain," Jonathan said. "I didn't come here to make a scene or demand punishment. That's not my style. But I do need to say something, and I hope you'll take it as advice, not as a reprimand." Mr. Wallace nodded, clearly unsettled. Jonathan continued, "Your team, or at least part of it, treated my sons with contempt. Humiliation masked as protocol. All because they didn't look like they had money. That's more common than people think, and for that very reason, it's unacceptable." He paused briefly, observing the manager's reaction. But there was one man who treated them as equals, who didn't see what they were wearing, but who they were, who extended a hand without knowing he'd ever gain anything from it. "And that is why I'm here today." The manager took a deep breath, feeling the weight of those words. It wasn't a scolding. It was an invitation to reassess core values. "I understand completely, Mr. Price, and I'm truly sorry for what happened." Jonathan simply nodded. Respect should never be conditional on someone's status. A true professional doesn't need to guess who's wealthy. He only needs to treat everyone with dignity. Because at the end of the day, you never really know who you're talking to, but you always know who you are being. At that moment, the manager wasn't thinking about the $1 million sale. He was thinking about the lesson. One you won't find in a sales course or a customer service manual. A lesson about character, humility, and humanity. Jonathan concluded, "Value Andrew. If it weren't for him, I wouldn't be here today." And with that, he stood up with his usual grace, leaving behind a message far more valuable than any figure written on a contract. A few minutes after Jonathan left the room, Mr. Wallace, still processing the words of the billionaire, ran a hand through his hair and let out a deep sigh. The lesson had been clear and fair, and he knew he couldn't pretend nothing had happened. It needed to be addressed. He stood up, straightened his jacket, and walked with purpose to the center of the showroom. He called all the salesmen over, his voice firm but not angry. The employees, still buzzing with speculation, gathered quietly. Some tried to hide their tension, others pretended not to care, but everyone knew something important was coming. "I need to speak with all of you," Mr. Wallace began, looking each one in the eye. "Today we made one of the biggest sales of the quarter. But that is not what matters most." Rick swallowed hard. Martin leaned back against the wall, his expression tight. "A very special client came through our doors, and he didn't buy that car just because he liked the model. He bought it because he was treated with dignity by only one of you." Silence. No one dared to interrupt. The manager then turned to Andrew and spoke clearly. "If it weren't for your actions yesterday, your kindness, your humanity, this sale never would have happened. And worse, we wouldn't just have lost a sale. We would have lost respect." Andrew stood still, eyes wide, but posture steady. He hadn't expected this. He never did anything for praise. And that's why, starting today, you're being promoted to sales team manager. A soft murmur rippled through the group. Rick, who had once mocked with smug superiority, looked away, overcome with shame and regret. Andrew took a few seconds to process. He had never imagined receiving such public recognition, especially not so suddenly. But deep down, what moved him most wasn't the promotion. It was the confirmation that his choice had been worth it, even when others mocked him, even when no one was watching. "Thank you," he said quietly. "I was just trying to do what's right." The manager nodded. "And that's exactly what we need here. People who choose to do what's right, even when no one's watching." In that moment, a new chapter began, not just for Andrew, but for the entire team. A dealership once focused on appearances had just been stripped to its core. And maybe, for the first time, everyone understood that character isn't worn, it's revealed. The days that followed brought Andrew more than a new title. They brought a new perspective. Now, as sales team manager, he led with the same principle that had guided him from day one. Respect has no price, and every human being deserves to be treated with dignity. It didn't take long for the dealership to breathe a new atmosphere. Slowly, even the most resistant salespeople began to reflect on their behavior. Andrew's presence didn't demand fear, it inspired change. A few weeks later, Andrew's phone rang. It was Jonathan Price's personal assistant. "Mr. Price would like you to personally handle Mrs. Price's vehicle replacement. She prefers to deal with you." And with that, something began, something no sales manual ever teaches: the building of trust. It wasn't long before the calls became frequent. Jonathan recommended Andrew to friends, to business partners, to fellow executives. But always with the same phrase: "Ask for Andrew. He's different." Over time, Andrew came to know not just Jonathan, but his wife, his sons, and their daily routines. Not as a servant, but as someone respected. The twins, Liam and Tyler, returned to the dealership many times, not just to look at cars, but to talk with Andrew, exchange ideas, and learn. "You know, you changed a lot in our heads that day," Tyler said during one of their visits. "I just showed you what you already had," Andrew replied. "Confidence. The world just isn't used to seeing it." Their bond became solid. And although Andrew never asked why the boys had dressed so simply that day, he knew it hadn't been a coincidence. It was life's way of testing people. One of those seemingly small encounters that carry the power to shatter masks and reveal truths. And Jonathan, discreet as always, kept a watchful eye. He knew how to recognize real value when he saw it. And Andrew had quietly become part of his family's story. The dealership was thriving. Sales were climbing, but even more than that, its reputation was soaring. Customers spoke of the manager who treated everyone like a person. And the store became known not just for its luxury cars, but for the human way it served people. Andrew now trained new salespeople. And at every meeting, he repeated the same line: "What defines a sale isn't the car. It's how you look at the person in front of you." That phrase, born from a quiet act of kindness, would become a motto, not just in the dealership, but in the lives of everyone who crossed Andrew's path. It was a sunny morning in Austin when Andrew received an unexpected invitation. The Price family wanted him present at Liam and Tyler's 17th birthday celebration. It would be a small event, just close family and friends. First, Andrew hesitated. He still saw himself as an outsider, someone who had simply done the right thing. Nothing more. But Jonathan's voice on the other end of the phone was unmistakably clear. "You weren't just kind. You became part of a lesson my sons will never forget. And we want you with us to celebrate that." On the day of the party, held in the gardens of the Price estate, Andrew arrived wearing his best suit, the same one he'd worn to his dealership interview. It wasn't designer, but it was honest. Just like him, he was greeted with hugs, smiles, and eyes overflowing with gratitude. Liam and Tyler looked different now, more mature, more confident, but with the same sparkle in their eyes as the day they'd pressed their faces against that showroom window, hearts full of wonder at the sight of a Lamborghini. During the toast, Jonathan asked for everyone's attention. Standing before the guests, his voice calm and firm, he said, "This celebration is about my sons' lives, but it's also about remembering that our greatest riches aren't measured in money. They show up in our actions." He paused and looked directly at Andrew. A year ago, this man taught us a lesson without even knowing it. He could have acted like everyone else, but instead, he chose respect. And that's why today he's not here as a salesman. He's here as someone we trust, as part of our story. Andrew felt a lump in his throat. He was never one for speeches, so he simply raised his glass silently. And in that silence, there was everything: recognition, gratitude, humility. Later, as the party carried on in laughter and music, he stepped back for a moment, watching from a distance as the young guests danced, families laughed, and the sky began to change colors. Tyler walked up beside him, a soft smile on his face. "You know, Andrew, maybe one day we'll buy another car from you. But more than that, I hope we keep being the kind of people who do the right thing like you did." Andrew smiled, deeply moved. "You already are, Tyler. You already are." Life went on. Cars were traded. Roles shifted. But what remained was what mattered most. The reminder that kindness doesn't choose a time or a crowd. It chooses courage. And that true respect, the kind that's offered without knowing who's standing in front of you, has the power to change everything, even destinies. If you enjoyed this video, let us know in the comments. Your opinion is very important to us. Don't forget to subscribe. A big hug, and see you in the next video.